Hello and welcome to the post-match reaction to the Sharks versus the British and Irish Lions. Hi, I'm Paul and I'll be your host this evening all the way from New Zealand. But don't worry, I've got men on the ground who are going to help me with this one because let's be honest, it was all a bit of a mess going into this one. I've got Judge Rugby or Sean and Jacques. Good evening, Sean, and welcome to the show. It's your first time on the channel. And as you say, a bit of in our pre-match chat, a bit of a mess, this whole thing, trying to figure out what the game time was, who was starting, all ahead of this game.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, it was a little bit of a juggle trying to. So firstly, it was a late sort of call to have the game going. I really thought it would be called, but then I almost felt like they did a full change on the team. So I was kind of guesstimating initially, and then with the jersey changes and Farrell without a jersey and Louis Zammit with 10 on, it just really threw it up in the air. So I just watched the game and enjoyed it.
Jacques, for you, did you have it all together, or were you equally confused as the rest of us?
Definitely very confusing, Paul. Hi to all the viewers. Great to be here. And yeah, it was definitely confusing, the late changes. And obviously, after tonight, we know that the British and Irish Lions are more than a team. They're definitely a squad, to absorb 8 late changes and sort of keep it together and keep your structure and play like that. All credit to them, and like I said, after tonight, they're more than a team. They're a squad. You can see this is a squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And so coming into it, folks, I went to bed not knowing what time the game would be or if the game would happen. So the first alarm went off. Quick check of Twitter, and it's kind of like, oh, good, I get another hour's sleep. And then basically spend the first 10 minutes or so, or 20 minutes of the game trying to figure out who is and who isn't in managed or not managed, in isolation at the moment. Now, there's been no official announcement, so this is a cobbled together list, folks. But Townsend wasn't in the coach's box, so I think we can probably expect that he is in isolation. And then the players who were pulled out of the squad, so Murray, Davies, so the two scrum halves there, Hogg. But there's a question about whether he had a dead leg or not. So he might be an injury pull rather than actually a COVID one. Anthony Watson, Bigger, Harris, Williams, and then just the lone forward, Ty Burn. And you got to say then, has Ty Burn been spending too much time with the pretty boys at the back to be a close contact? Whereas because all the rest of them there are backs. Apparently, one manager and one player do have tested positive for COVID, so we don't know who those are. And as Sean said there, no number on the back of Farrell's jersey, but also no number on the back of Felipe Faletau's jersey as well. But I mean, a number 8 playing in the 23 position, you can understand why they didn't have a 23 jersey big enough for him. And it clearly shows that Van der Merwe will not be playing, not be on the bench in the number 10 in that 23 jersey, because otherwise they would have had one free for him. So that's my only sort of tactical takeaway, is that Van der Merwe is a starter, not a bench player. But I think we probably all knew that ahead of time. Look, Jacques, I think I came into this one. I think we talked after the Lions game, saying that the Sharks were probably a stronger side and be a better test for the Lions. And yet, again, we saw 2 tries within the first 6 minutes, which kind of took all the pressure off the British and Irish Lions, and another fast start from the team.
Yeah, spot on, Paul. The thing is, we're still waiting to see this British and Irish Lions team under pressure, and only then will we really be able to sort of formulate where they really are, and so far the South African franchises have sort of failed dismally to really put them under pressure. But to give a little bit more credit to the Lions, there was a lot of periods during that match, and the same happened with the Sigma Lions game, where the Sharks was sort of on their try line, 5 meters out, and that's got to count for something, for some kind of pressure, and the British and Irish Lions just absorbed it, and they just got away with the ball every single time, So defensively, early in the tour, you can already see they're going to be a tough nut to crack come that that last 10 meters to the try line. They're just so organized, and they seem to come away with the ball when it really matters. So that's the only sort of pressure they really had. But as for the backs, that was no pressure really, and they could just sort of enjoy themselves tonight and have a run at it. And once again, you see when that sort of thing happens, the wing scores tries, and that's what happened again tonight. Lots of try.
Three for Van der Merwe, 3 for Josh Adams. So Josh Adams has started his Lions career in fantastic form. Shaun, I mean, as a Sharks, I think you're a Sharks supporter. I'll get this right. With 9 players missing to the Springboks, I guess, was this the kind of start you expect? Were we expecting a disjointed start from the Sharks, or did you expect them to be a bit more? Because to me, initially, they weren't connected defensively and they improved. But were you expecting a disjointed start from the Sharks?
I must be honest, I'm maybe perhaps slightly biased. I did expect a better showing from the Sharks than from the Lions. I thought, with respect, I thought the moment maybe got a bit big for the Sharks, and also the disruption leading up to it, I thought really put them out, because they threatened a bit, but they just didn't really get it going. And I just thought they could offer more, but they did. It kind of shows like what senior players and what the Springboks offer to setups, and with a massive change and massive rift. So yeah, but I will, conversely, the Lions, with all their changes and everything, it does show, and to echo what Jacques said, is like they are a squad, and they really performed and dominated, and really everyone's pulling in the same direction. So they did really well.
But again, so to finish off the Sharks, they've got the Currie Cup going on. They've got another game in only 3 or 4 days' time. So how much sometimes when we see midweek games up in Europe, the club sides deliberately put out a weaker side because they're actually concentrating on the league. Is this game more important than the Currie Cup for the Sharks, or will they, or did we see some players being saved for the weekend's game that is up against the Lions on Sunday?
Yeah. If I had to make a call, I'd say this was totally where they were going to look, where the coaches and the players were going to look at sort of finding out where they are and where they belong and how they're doing. Because as much as the Currie Cup and the South Africans, and we all love it, it's the be-all and end-all for our rugby. But the truth is, it's not what it used to be. And performing overseas, whether it was Super Rugby or with United Rugby Championship that's coming up in Europe, I think that's where their bread and butter is for everyone. I don't think there is a massive financial or any other gain other than like high fives with the Currie Cup and like some kids growing up wanting to do it. But I think the big money and where you perform and where you get noticed by the Springbok coaches and other overseas sides is playing either Super Rugby or in the Pro 14. So I think this was massive for them. You always want to perform against the big boys. And obviously some of these guys, with the Springboks and losing 9 players, they want to show that they have the ability to do what is needed. And performing for the South African coaches and other franchises and clubs.
Yeah, and sorry, folks, just correction myself here. That Sharks Sigma Lions game is on Saturday, South Africa time. It's Sunday, New Zealand time, which is why I got mixed up. So it is a quick turnaround for the Sharks, but this, as you say, this was their focus. And then Jax, you talk. You the first brought up that it's a squad, not a team spirit. I think for me, the reason for that is at the moment. They're all gunning for test spots, and that means they know that so there is one game plan for the entire squad. They're trying to figure out who. There isn't within most squads. You have a hierarchy where right, this is my starting 15 or my starting 23, and these guys are the guys trying to make it into the team, and you tend to train in those blocks. With the British and Irish Lions, because they don't have that hierarchy yet, I think it's probably been mixed up the entire time. So they're finding that actually, with the since training is all mixed up, when you come to the game day and you have a late change, it isn't such a big issue. But it was the same 8, and I think, and as you mentioned there, the backs had an easy ride because that 8 got over the gain line. So to a certain degree, I think it was because the pack didn't change. I thought in the second half, when they were changing players off the bench, that they perhaps maybe lost some of their line speed, maybe lost some of their cohesion, or do you, or don't you agree? Do you think that the bench played well as well?
Well, the British and Irish Lions are certainly a very fit side, and although the cohesion sort of broke down, I would agree with you on that. They sort of still accelerated the gameplay towards the end, and this is once again for me something I didn't see coming. I always thought altitude. They would struggle, and most of the South African teams would come back towards the end of the game. But this is a very, very fit outfit, and they're proving it, and they are definitely not leaving anything in the tank there. So I thought that Finn Russell coming on for Farrell it was about the 50th minute, around about there, sort of. Gatlin showing his hand. He's sort of putting Farrell in just protecting him a little bit there, and showing that he's an important asset. And we will have to see where he's going to play him in the test side now. The thing about these matches for me as well is that it's making things very difficult from a selection point of view, I think, for Gatland, because it's sort of one-sided, and this is maybe the one thing that could help the box a little bit, because it could give you that false sense of security, and it could sort of, if I just look at the wings, I mean, most people would have thought that Anthony Watson was the favorite to start at wing a few weeks back, and now suddenly it's a very difficult, Josh Adams just keeps on scoring tries, and Duan really performing very well, and it's going to be difficult to really settle on some of the selections. So I think that's one thing that might sort of play in the Springboks' favor. But to get back to your question, I thought that if there was a lack of cohesion in the last 20, 30 minutes, it didn't really affect them in that much, because of just the pure fitness and the pace of the game. They just they make an error, but they just accelerate the game again and again and again, and take it away from you. So that's worrying.
Yeah, that fitness there. I mean, you're quite right about that back three, because tonight we had Reece Summit and Van der Merwe on the wings, and Josh Adams at fullback. To me, coming into this test, coming into this tour, the starting back three were Hogg at 15, Williams on one wing, and Watson on the other wing. So an entirely different back three, and three guys who can all play fullback, because we're expecting a bit of a aerial bombardment from the Springboks. So yeah, you're quite right. A lot of players putting their hands up, and as I've gone blank, but the Welsh and ex-British Irish Lions skipper, who's Sam Warburton, said, yeah, no players so far have played themselves out of contention. I think we've had players putting their hands up. I don't think anyone's really put their hand down yet so far. But I want to take up on that selection thing, and also Sean bringing in here. But with the Bulls game called off this weekend, again, one less game ahead of the test matches. I think the suggestion is that it's played as a midweek game before the first test. So yeah, again, not overly difficult games. If I'm being a bit harsh, but and a game less. Can you see that being a problem for the Lions heading into the test series for selection?
I do, actually. I think in terms of all the planning and the continuity and how they saw things rolling out, it will impact. I think, but having said that, it will impact now, and I think they will be quick on their feet and just manage it accordingly. But Warren Gatland historically has been excellent at preparing players and getting them ready for Test match rugby. So how this will change that, I don't know. Also, like it really will. It'll change things up, because I think that he would have still comfortably gone with a couple of Test starters in the game on the weekend on Saturday. But now that that's changed, he can't. So essentially, what I think is going to happen is it's really going to impact on the depth players. Those guys that will eventually need to be. There will be 2 or 3 guys that will have to come into the match day 23 for the final test or the second test. And I think that's where it'll change, where I think it'll benefit South Africa, because our bench is historically our bench over the last year and a bit has been really, really strong. We're a little bit on the back foot at the moment, but I think it'll probably be a little bit more of an issue for the Lions than just brushing it off.
Well, I'll play with devil's advocate and put the oar in here, but I would say that the bench hasn't had to do anything for the last year. So just over a year ago, it was a very good bench, but it's been very well rested recently. I do think this is going to be a problem. Because I saw essentially that they would be aiming to put out the Test side up pretty much against the Stormers, basically a week ahead of the game. Now, with only one game before that Stormers game, and it being only a couple of days beforehand, figuring out what that Test side is going to be difficult. On the flip side, though, for South Africa, with it looking like the Georgia game is probably off this weekend, how do you think Rassie will be using that South Africa A game? Will he use that as an extra sort of warm-up game and play a few more Test starters than he would have done initially, or how do you see South Africa handling that South Africa Test A game, because it's using the same squad as the Springbok squad, is my understanding.
Yeah, so the Georgia Springbok game is definitely off, and the thing is I think Jacques Nienaber is gonna. This also changes things for them as well, significantly. We probably were going to see a lot of the overseas guys, and specifically, I think a couple of the Toulouse and the French boys playing this weekend for the Springboks, and we're not going to see the likes of Colby and Elstad getting a run. So I think what that might do is change things up for the SAA side. I think guys are going to need some game time, and I think they're going to need a bit of structure. And the thing is what happened against the Georgians last week. I think guys will take individual performances and nitpick and whatnot, but we as a whole were missing our sort of togetherness. We were missing that telepathy that players have, that teams have, and stuff, and we need to get more of that. And we're missing out on 80 minutes of it, which normally wouldn't matter, but the fact that we only would have technically had 160 minutes before the first Lions test is massive. So I think we're up against it as well. The same as Gatland. Gatland is always good at getting a squad together when he's got some time with them. The same as Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus, who's the director of rugby, the head of the Springbok and South African rugby as a whole. They definitely have had a plan and definitely have had stuff together. So I reckon the players are going to be pushed through in different spaces, which is actually going to be quite interesting. So the proof's in the pudding. Can't wait to see.
So, Jacques, your prediction: what kind of side are we going to see for South Africa up against British and Irish Lions? Is it effectively going to be a fourth Test match, or are we still going to see experimentation from South Africa?
Yeah, I think obviously the way rugby's gone over the last 18 months, there's not a coach that hasn't had to sort of make last-minute changes, or teams flying over and flying back without playing the game and those kind of things. So I think the contingency plans would have been in place. I think they would have had this talk a long time ago. What if a game gets cancelled? What if these kind of things happen? Having said that, it's not an ideal situation, and we desperately need to see game times. If you look at the first test, I thought that we picked against Georgia, we picked our first choice hooker and lock pairing. We picked very close to our first choice loose forwards. And I thought that this weekend we would see sort of our first choice centre pairing in Damien and Lucanio Am maybe getting a run, and the back three maybe being sorted a little bit more with Cheslin and Mapimpi and those sort of guys featuring. And I think it was all about combinations. It was not about getting our best side out on the field at all. But we really wanted to use these games for combination. So the South African A side has suddenly turned very interesting in the sense that don't be surprised if you see sort of Lucanio Am and Damien just featuring in that game, just to give them that one game together to build up a sort of a just understanding and get some experience again together. So I think we're going to see a few Springboks, to be honest. That's just my prediction. I don't know what Rassie would think, but I think we might see the odd first choice Springbok featuring in that game, especially the guys who haven't had a run. Alternatively, he could filter some of them through to the provincial games, but there's not a lot left, and the Bulls game is anyway has been postponed, I think, until the final test. Is it the Wednesday before the final test, if I'm correct? Which is
I say it's such a moving picture. I heard the 20th of July, but hey, that maybe it has been moved to the that midweek, so it'd be what, the 4th or 5th, or yeah, about the 4th of August, maybe.
Yeah, so they want to do it between the second and the third test on the Wednesday, but I doubt very much whether the British, whether the Lions would agree to that. It would just be maybe the series might be over by then. I don't know. But to have a midweek game just prior to the final test is just, I don't know if that's really going to happen. To be honest, just if you look at the state of South African rugby in general, I think 12 years is a long time, and I think what's happening at the moment is sort of a picture of the player drain we've experienced over the last few years, and we sort of now really starting to feel the effects of 300-400 guys playing in Europe and all over the world, Japan. And, it's also different this year in the sense that we didn't just pick a Bok side. We picked a Bok squad and we picked a Bok A squad as well. So you're pulling another 20-odd players from the franchises. And suddenly these games have really... the only real explanation for it is just to get viewers in front of the TV and make a bit of money out of it. I don't really see the value really in terms of rugby terms. It can't. I don't think Gatlin is how can I say it? I don't think he's putting his money on these games, giving him the real picture as to who should be the starting 15 and the starting 23. Some guys might do well, and they are confusing and muddling the waters, but I don't think he's that stupid to not realize that these are very one-sided matches, and he should tread very carefully to make decisions based on what he saw tonight and on Saturday, because it's going to be a very different thing when the tests start.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely different. They do need game time. You're talking about that squad. It's a 46-man squad, but I think 21 of those are from overseas players. So yes. What's that? So 25 players from the four franchises there. So still a lot of players being taken out of these teams. And one of the things that happened on the 8 years ago in the Australian tour was that they deliberately put the Wallabies back into most of those Super Rugby games. And again, COVID, I don't think he'll be allowed to release players back into the Stormers game which is the only one we've got left now because of the COVID bubbles. I don't think he'll be allowed to release players for that game. So I think the Stormers have got whoever they've got. they're not going to get back players such as Maherby or Mapimbi or Ntumbi and Tumini. Sorry, but those are the three. The front row at the top of the list of the thing, and my pronunciations are awful. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I can't see them being released and available. Unfortunately, I'd love it to happen. I think it should happen because you say that these sides need to be more competitive than they are. We've talked a lot about the series. We've gone off the actual game, but I just want to come back to the game a bit too. Because I think there was some nice play by the Sharks, particularly for their try. 4 or 5 players running down the tram lines, each of them taking it on the 5 meters, going towards the sideline, lining it up so the next player knew exactly where he had to run, getting the passes out of the tackle, so really committing players and passing it. I thought was very good. I don't know if you saw the Wallabies versus France game yesterday, but the Wallabies really didn't fix their players and were passing the ball way too early. Whereas the Sharks in that second half were committing players and passing well. So Shaun, you'll be happy with that. If you're not happy, even if you weren't happy with some of the ruck play, because they did lose the ball out the back of the ruck too often.
Yeah, I must say I expected a little bit more from the Sharks to start off, and then I did expect more in the second half. I thought maybe they'd settle a bit more, but when you're trailing by so much and you're trying to force the game, the Sharks had opportunities early in the second half and it just flipped, and then the Lions went on and just broke them. If the Sharks had scored another try in the first 10 or 15 minutes and managed to gain a bit of ascendancy, I do believe it would have changed the game a little bit more. I thought they were a better, more settled and a more sort of relaxed side. I think they realized the game was gone. I know I mentioned earlier, I think the moment got a bit big in the beginning, and they wanted to overperform and force it, and it wasn't quite working. And if you look at a lot of those guys, a lot of those youngsters, it's a bit of a weird thing to say, but it's comfortably their biggest game that they've played. Where previously on Lions tours, guys would have played Super Rugby and they would have been in the mix and played overseas sides. You're looking at guys like Hendricks and Buthelezi and the youngsters who've played for the SA Under-20 side, but they haven't really ventured out of out of South Africa for their provincial sides or their unions. So it was a steep learning curve, and they learned a lot by it. And I did think that they got a little bit better and managed themselves better in the end. I was just a little disappointed. I must be honest, I did expect a bit more from Bosch. I know that he takes a lot of stick in South Africa, but I thought being a Springbok, he would have been a little bit more up to speed with the pace where no one else was able to do it. And with Lowe and Ward not getting as much ball, they're pretty handy as a centre pairing, and I was expecting a little bit more in the midfield. And I just don't think maybe perhaps taking their lead off Bosch, or just really being closed down by Daly and Archie and Farrell, that they just weren't able to get in the mix, and that caused a lot of hassles for the outside backs who really didn't get any love.
Yeah, I think Bosch, his decision making wasn't great as well as execution. Some of the grubbers through, which led to the Reece Summit try in the second half, was a bit aimless. He didn't have enough cover outside him for the kick chase. He didn't put it into a place where that it was contestable or for his guys to chase onto. So you're right. It was disappointing for him, and he needed to be, he said, that experienced leader in that back line. And to be fair to the Sharks in that second half, look, I mean, the Josh Adams one was okay. A pass hit grass. They got unlucky because Reece Summit then knees it forward and kicks it forward. We had another one that, again, admittedly was disallowed, which again was a hack through. And then a couple of turnovers led to quick strike. It wasn't like in the first half the Lions were kind of building tries. In that second half, it was opportunistic counter-attacking rugby from the Lions. I think the Sharks really improved in their retention of the ball, and also their use of width in that second half as well. I must admit, at 26-0, I thought it could be 60-0, but I'm glad the Sharks got got a try and also kept it beneath that 60 mark. Jacques, any sort of final comments about the game?
Yeah, the one aspect that we haven't touched on is the scrums, and I actually thought that I actually thought that the Sharks did quite well. These guys that they put up tonight, in Chunu and okay, Kwesi is more of an experienced first class player, but like was said, this was definitely the biggest game he would have played in his life. So I thought that they at times it was a bit of a one for you, one for me, but I thought at times the Sharks sort of exposed them a little bit there. And this is where I'm sort of getting a bit of hope as well, because I think really that that the Springbok front row is sort of still ahead of the queue a little bit for me. Although when Tad Furlong is a different kettle of fish altogether. But I would say that sort of gave me a little bit of confidence for the test matches. The Lions had great line speed when they defended, so they put a lot of pressure. You could clearly see they went out to close the space on Kerwin Bosch, and I don't think the loose forwards did enough to protect him there and just sort of stand in line. They were more, James Fenter and Richardson and Pepsi. They're more out in the wide channels, and they didn't really protect Kerwin, in my opinion. And the Lions certainly send out the message that if you're going to kick the ball at them, they're gonna come at you. And they're doing quite well on the counter attack. Definitely, if it's not tries, then it's definitely a lot of meters being made. So whatever they're doing there, they're doing something right, and I'm sure Rassie and Jacques would look closely at that, because if we're not gonna, we're gonna have to bring something different than to just take it up, with our forwards. And if we're gonna kick at them, then we will have to win the ball back at least, or have some kind of plan to win it back. In contrast to that, I thought that the Sharks were quite bad in the air. Whenever they were kicked at, I didn't think Abrams had a very bad game at 11. It's still also he's a great talent, and I think he's still going to get far. But tonight was not his night, and it would be one that he would want to forget. He wasn't good on the ground with the ball, and he wasn't good in the air. So at this stage, it's going to be very interesting, because I would think that Andre Pollard would want to launch a few, but it's going to be very important what kind of kicks we do, because if you're going to do 1-0 kick every 1 out of every 5, you're going to have to know your story on defense. So interesting times.
Yeah, absolutely. On that one, the kick game is going to be very important, especially if we're going to have two tests at altitude. Also, on the scrums, just I'll very quickly say I'm disappointed that the Lions have been going for penalties. I would like to see them actually at least practice some of their moves off the back of scrums, because at the moment they seem to be scrumming for penalties, not scrumming for an attacking platform. Shaun, your final thoughts on the game?
I will say something. I thought in the first half, I thought the Sharks pack got a little lucky and got a couple of good penalties, or should I say a couple of penalties at scrum time, when I thought that perhaps the Lions had a bit of ascendancy. And it was touch and go with a few of them, but I just thought that it could comfortably have gone the other way, which obviously changed the game dramatically. But yeah, just on Ntutuko Chunu, he youngster, if I'm not mistaken, I think he played 8th man at school or something. But he's a flipping talent, and he's at 22 years old. I thought he did exceptionally well in the front row. But yeah, I must say I do agree in terms of the loose forwards. The Sharks' loose forwards were they're not a tight bunch of loose forwards. They are quite open and loose. There's no Dwayne Vermeulen there. There's no Kieran Reid, the guys that are really going to truck it up in the midfield. The guys are, they're going to play a little bit more open and stuff like that. So that's a great shout in terms of how Bosch could have probably needed a little bit more protection. And having Hendrikse inside or Williams, the guys were probably also looking, for other people to help them on a little bit. A more experienced 9 might have taken a little bit of a load off Bosch, which would have been hard, especially when our loosies and when the Sharks loosies and their forwards weren't exactly dominating at the breakdown. So I think there's a lot to come out of this, and I think there's so much that still needs to happen in order for us to all really have a proper understanding of what's going to happen in the opening 2 tests, and we're not going to see it. The truth is, it's not going to happen. So we're kind of all going in blind, and it's going to be very interesting. And I think the biggest hurdle for the Springboks to overcome and Jacques Nienaber to get the boys together is to get that connectivity again, to have that understanding, to just to be with the lads. It's almost like they need to go out for like a dinner and a couple of drinks and just chat and just get to know each other again, because they haven't had it for so long. Some guys haven't seen each other since the World Cup, so they've got a lot of time to do that, and you only really get that in game time. So when are they going to get it? And that's the biggest question. And looking forward to seeing what happens, but backing the Boks all the way. Don't care what happens.
Absolutely. And I've got my well, at least one Lions jersey. I should have 2 up there somewhere. But anyway, so yes, I'll be backing the Lions.
You got to pick a side. You're lacking the most important jersey, and it's green.
Well, yeah, but no one sent me one through. See, so it's the and they don't go on sale over here very often. You're quite right. They need that time together, and keeping going into isolation is not going to help with that at all. And that's going to affect both sides. It's going, as you say, we're going to go in a bit blind. It is strange times. It is strange. It's going to be a strange. It is a strange tour. But thank you so much, Shaun and Jax, for joining me. Everyone, stay safe and where you're and do everything that you're supposed to be doing and your governments tell you to do, please, so that have a great time. Looks like I'm going to get a lie-in this weekend and not have to get up early for games, as both looks like they're both cancelled, which would be nice from a sleep point of view, but a shame from a rugby one.